Hi guys. So we have made it to the Cold War. Here we are. We've been waiting all year, and I know that it's not the same, but it's okay. Watch these videos because you all know I will have a lot to say about this stuff, and we will just pretend that we're all together discussing my favorite time period in history. It's okay. Just watch the videos because I have a lot to talk about. So here we are. We've made it to the Cold War, and the slides for this unit are blue. And I wanted to blue, like, it's a little chilly, it's a little cold, and I also just wanted to not be predictable and have red. If you had me last year, it was red last year. So blue for it being a little cold, okay? So today you are doing a discussion on Canvas under the discussion thread. We're going to talk about what a Cold War is. I have lots of questions, so be there for the discussion. I want to hear your thoughts. Some of you, I haven't heard anything since the last time I saw you in person, so come on. I want to talk. I want to talk about this, okay? So you're doing the discussion on Canvas and the discussion thread, and then you're also watching a crash course, which I'll put the link in the live agenda. This one from John Green made me chuckle a few times. He's going to say some names that you haven't heard yet. Gorbachev, right? Like Ronald Reagan, you know who Ronald Reagan is, but those are going to be the two leaders towards the end of the Cold War that are going to play a key role in really ending this war. So, and he's going to say some Russian words too, but we will talk about all of that stuff. As always, everything that he says, we will talk about. So I took some notes on the crash course, so we can talk about that. And then after you've watched the crash course video, please watch it. It's a good one. It's only 11 minutes. You have you're doing slides 1 through 4, I'm sorry. And this is slide 1, right? So then the second slide are your essential questions. Write down all 4 essential questions. This is for you guys. This should be slide 1, essential questions. Like always, we've been doing that all year, so this is your first slide, essential questions. So write all 4 of them down. How did the arms race begin in the 1950s and early 1960s? Number 2 is, how did the superpowers attempt to achieve arms control during the Cold War? Number 3, how did Western Europe recover economically in the post-war era? And number 4, how did the Soviet Union break up? Okay, so we will talk about all of those and we'll answer them at the end of the unit, but you need to write them down. Slide number 3 is all of your vocab words. All of your vocab words. Don't write all of them down unless you want to, but they will be in bold throughout the slides. Write those down when you see them in the slides. This would be the point that I would ask you if anything looks familiar. Hopefully some of it does. Like arms race, Sputnik, hydrogen bomb, containment. That stuff should look familiar to you. Okay? So then the only really writing slide that you have is slide number 4, and the title is The Cold War Begins. So that's the one that we're going to talk about, Cold War Begins. But before we get into this slide, I want to talk about the crash course video. So John Green in the crash course video starts off, and I really like the way that he did this. He starts off with basically explaining that this is, and we're going to look at it from the point of view of the United States, like that's a natural thing for us, but we need to expand our brains and think about this from all points of view because this is world history. He explains it that from the Western point of view, which is us, we're the Western side, we thought that communism was going to take over everywhere and countries were going to fall to communism. They were going to catch the cold of communism. It's a sickness and that was going to spread, and these countries were just going to have communist economies. Well, on the other point of view, the Eastern side, they thought that democracy and capitalism was going to take over and that people were going to catch the cold of capitalism, okay? So this is how we're looking at this. Like, we thought communism was going to spread and take over the world, which it did spread a lot. And Stalin in the Soviet Union is saying, well, capitalism is spreading. What about my cold, this communism cold? capitalism is spreading. And it was, because after World War II, we like jumped in all these countries and we're like, you're a democracy, you're a democracy. Oh, also you have to practice capitalism as your economic system, and you're a democracy and you're a democracy. We changed Japan's entire constitution, right? Like we're doing all these things to make sure that these countries govern the way that we want them to, so we don't fight them. And so we're not the only ones, or Joseph Stalin's not the only one doing this. Like, you're communism. Well, we were doing that with capitalism and democracy. So like he's not alone in that, but it's just a point of view as to which one you think is bad. Okay. He also has really nice maps to show you how it is spreading, because Russia is going to have those satellite states and he's going to say communism, 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 communism. It's almost like, and when you see this map in the crash course, it reminded me, and it should remind you, of the map of the Axis powers during World War II. And we looked at this map so many times and the whole thing was yellow, because that is how much control the Nazis had. Well, it's going to expand, and imagine like all those, that yellow territory, imagine that being red for communism, and that's what Stalin's going to do. So he's going to take over a lot of territory and institute communism there. So this is why we're getting nervous in the United States, because it's like, wow, they really are catching this cold of communism, and it's spreading very quickly. And if you recall from American history, and we'll have this discussion on the discussion thread, so be there, why are we so scared of communism? Or scared, or what? Like, not necessarily just like, I mean, of course, during the Cold War, we're scared. Today, no, we're not scared of it, but we strongly disagree with their practices. So we're going to talk about that on this discussion thread. Be there, be there. Okay, so John Green says this is opposing sides. Capitalism is going to take over, communism is going to take over, and each side says that has to stop. With our atomic bomb, that's actually going to really give Joseph Stalin the permission that he needed to create his own atomic bomb, and that's when we have the arms race of the nuclear weapons. And we still are. We still should be very scared of nuclear weapons, and I think John Green does a great job of explaining, that these can completely destroy the world. Like, this is nothing to mess around with. So, we use something called mutually assured destruction, which is MAD or MAD, meaning like both of us have the same amount of weapons that can equally destroy the other one. So if you use something, we can just use the equal strength right back and destroy you. So if you think you can destroy us, we can definitely destroy you. That's mutually assured destruction. We'll talk about that throughout the unit. And Joseph Stalin uses spies to get our information, because we've created the atomic bomb first, and it's an arms race, and it's scary. And then you have duck and covers and stuff, which I'm very excited for, which is a very scary time, but now I can look back and be like excited to talk about their fears. And you also have actual hot wars during the Cold War, because we have Korea and Vietnam, and this was basically us trying to stop communism from taking over in Korea and in Vietnam. So that's why we had those wars, and we will talk about those throughout the unit as well. Those are proxy wars, and those are the times where the Cold War turned hot, because there was actually fighting there. There's actually fighting there. So Cold War meaning no physical fighting to an extent, but threats and intimidation. Okay, so that's the crash course, and it was really good, so you need to watch that. So let's go to the slide. There are 4 things that you have there. I've numbered them out for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are pretty important. We divided up Germany. Number 1 says we divided up Germany into 4 zones. Eventually, those 4 sections that we said, it kind of looks, like a pie, really. Eventually, that's just going to be like one side. So we have the western side, so that's going to be West Germany, and then you have East Germany. The western side is going to be controlled by us, France, and Great Britain. And the eastern side is going to be controlled by the Soviets. So anytime you hear West something, that is America, and East something is the Soviet Union. So we have Germany separated by West Germany and East Germany, and then you have Berlin, which is separated with West Berlin and East Berlin. So even this tiny city is cut into 2 and cut into half, or cut in half, because the Soviets have control of one side, and Berlin is going to be a lot of where the tensions occur. So we've cut, number 1 says we've divided up Germany. Number 2 says we divided up the capital, which is Berlin. We have West Berlin and East Berlin. Number 3, the Nuremberg trials, over time. So this isn't just in 1945 when the war ends. Throughout history, we have put up to 200 Nazis and military officials on trial. and they were put for tried for their crimes and their crimes against humanity. So that's not just like immediately after the war. This is like throughout history, because you remember we have like Dominik and Adolf Eichmann as well that we've got later on. Number 4 says the Allies agreed on a plan for Germany to pay reparations for the destruction they caused during war. You got to pay off your war debt because you started this, just like World War I. The Soviet Union, SSU is Soviet Union, received the largest share because the country suffered the greatest destruction. Let's go back to the Yalta Conference. We feel very bad for Joseph Stalin. He fought the hardest. John Green mentions this in the crash course. He feels resentment towards the Allies. He was fighting the Nazis by himself for a very long time. We didn't invade Europe until D-Day, which was 1944. So it was Joseph Stalin by himself for a very long time. So he's going to feel resentment towards us. And that's why we traveled to Yalta. That's why we let him pick first. Right? So he suffered a lot during World War II. And so this is why he feels like he should have the most territory, why he should receive the most in the reparations. When Germany's paying back their debt, Stalin thinks that he should get the most. And, he's not completely wrong, but the guy sucks. And he's going to take that and he's going to use that to his advantage, and he's going to take land and he's going to say, you're communists, and also you are part of the Soviet Union now and you have no choice. Well, these people want to be free and independent, and you're not letting them. And John Green talks about that as well. And he also, the open letter is to Joseph Stalin, and it's pretty funny. He was a terrible person. He talks about his wife and murdering her family and his son, and it's just, watch it. Soviet dictators, Joseph Stalin promised to respect the rights of the people in Europe to choose their own governments, but he had a secret plan to establish pro-Soviet communist governments throughout Europe and beyond. So this was decided at the Yalta Conference to hold fair and free elections. He didn't. We have the Potsdam Conference. Hey, can you please remember that you made this promise? Sure, yeah. He's lying. And he has a secret agenda. So the Cold War is starting as soon as World War II ends. Joseph Stalin doesn't keep his promises. And we have the spread of communism, or the cold is spreading around Europe. And it gets very close. I mean, it starts to go towards South America, and then we have Central America, like Guatemala and stuff like that are going to have communist leaders, and that's very close to us. So we can't have that. We can't have that close. So there you go. Be there for the discussion. Write a summary on how the Cold War begins. What's Joseph Stalin's secret agenda? Why is he so bad? And what's he want to do? Okay. So think of this throughout this unit as, communism is going to spread, and that's what the Western side believes. That's what we believe. But on the Eastern side, he's fearful that capitalism is going to spread. So it's a mindset of like what you believe is bad. Of course, growing up in the United States, we're going to say that capitalism is very good, but not everyone believes that. So you have to think of it from different points of view, and eventually Russia is going to realize that communist countries don't stand for very long, because you don't make money and you need money, and you have to have a stable economy. And John Green mentions that as well. Here in the States, it's kind of like after World War I in the Roaring '20s, people are going to purchase so much stuff after World War II. We just like want to buy things because there's no war anymore, and you can purchase things. You're not rationing anymore. So, but you can't do that in the Soviet Union because everything is state run, and you don't have like things to buy, because you're only producing the necessities. You're not producing like dumb things that people can buy. You're only producing the necessities. So he will realize that. The leaders of Russia will realize that over time. Okay? We've made it to the Cold War. Yay. Do your summary. Be there for the discussion. Write your essential questions. See you tomorrow.